All right, talking about the farmers, agriculture. What we saw in Sri Lanka. So I'm going to start there because I want. This is going to run into everything we're talking about. Sri Lanka. A lot of the things that end up happening with the collapse of their government, it wasn't just that they couldn't get fuel, but they couldn't produce enough fertilizer. Not only could they not produce enough fertilizer, but they couldn't get enough gas to run a lot of the machines. It was just a total collapse of their infrastructure. Not only that, they had a 30% reduction forced upon them because of all the loans they took, right? So all the banks are kind of dictating what they were allowed to do and what they weren't allowed to do. And part of that was they had to reduce nitrogen output, and that's going into soil, right? The nitrogen that's produced by 30%. And what that led to was they already had issues with their food supply. So now you're going to cut their food supply even more. So that led to massive buy-offs in the store, or basically just rioting and looting that eventually happened because people were making a run at the store for food, water, any type of sustenance, because everybody saw the government was collapsing. Of course, now the government has collapsed. Politicians have fled the country. There's been resignations. The military is probably still trying to hold some semblance of government. Don't know how long that's going to last or what the solution is going to be, because right now Sri Lanka it's basically in the backyard of India. And India has a definite vested interest in what goes on in that region, because there's other countries that loaned a lot of money to Sri Lanka, namely China, who are going to want to return on their investment, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Sri Lanka and the Netherlands. We're talking about, hey guys, they want a 30% reduction in nitrogen there. They want 30% of farming and ranching to stop. Matter of fact, they want the land sold. So basically, all these farmers and ranchers in the Netherlands are going to go out of business, or they're going to have to sell off. And the government, of course, is going to come out. They're going to try to give them fair market value, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're taking away their generational wealth. When I say generational wealth, it's kind of like your home. When you buy a home and you go to sell it, you make money off of it, and then eventually you pass it on through your family to try to help your family get that step up. And that was one of the biggest things that's always helped anyone that's ever been in poverty. If they were able to make those simple investments in a home, what they were able to do was what? They were able to start building wealth through real estate or property. And that was one of the biggest things that's always helped a lot of people here in America. So when we look at Netherlands, and you see that it's starting to become a chain effect, because there's farmers, there's all these people all over the place that are doing what? They're blocking roads, they're blocking access for government or for just basically essential services to get around, because they're trying to make their point with not just the Netherlands, but now it's starting to have a ripple effect across Europe. And Netherlands, for a lot of you that don't understand, Netherlands is has very fertile soil. It's like it's a mini bread basket, of inside Europe and Western Europe, and provides a lot of food. So when we look at that and that reduction in nitrogen, now all of a sudden Justin Trudeau is wanting to do the same thing with Canada. And I'm going to show you this article here. If you look at this, he's wanting a 30% reduction in cattle ranching and agriculture in Canada. So if we look at that reduction in Canada, what's that mean? That means there's going to be a catastrophic effect across the industry in Canada. And the Canadian farmers have already been raising alarms on this. So what's the solution on this? Because eventually this is actually going to make its way in the United States. We do a lot of trade cross-border with Canada. And when you think about that, if they stop producing certain products that we need for our farms here and the cattle, then where does that leave the United States? We're seeing arable land that's being purchased up, especially along waterways within the United States, by corporations and individuals. So we need to look at how is this going to affect us when it comes to our food supply. Within the food industry, I talked to a friend of mine, Tony. He's a food broker, and he said within the food magazines for the industry, for companies to deal with and products to sell, a lot of the things they're seeing are alternative forms of food that don't, they're more plant-based proteins, and all these small companies are trying to be startups, and they're trying to get their products out into these brokers to get them on the market and to get them into the stores. If you've been in the stores, you've seen a lot of stuff. What is it? Beyond Meat, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. So there is a major push for this right now, and people need to understand. You need to start going to your local market, start supporting those people that are basically feeding and putting food into the local area, because right now this global supply chain is starting to break, because with this reduction in nitrogen that's going to be pushed, and a lot of countries are starting to implement it, what we're going to see is the supply chain is going to start breaking more, or basically what you're going to see is a reduction in the food that goes into the supply chain, and you're going to start seeing it in the global supermarkets. So when I say global supermarkets, what I mean is it's like your national supermarkets like Kroger, Publix, all these different places. You're going to start seeing a reduction eventually, because some of the sources for their food are going to be governed by environmental social governance, right? And that's the ESG. That ties into crypto-based digital currency. And what it's going to do is, if these companies or these ranches and these farms don't reduce what they're doing or get into another type of business, what's going to end up happening is they're going to be basically forced out of business. Their funding is going to be shut off. So if you understand that, you'll understand where we're eventually going with our food supply. Now, I'm going to show you this picture here. Take a look at this. This is Emory, Texas. This is the Emory auction for cattle. And if you look at this picture, I'm going to try to large it up. It is basically a line of vehicles pulling cattle to sell at the auction because of droughts in Texas. Anybody who knows anything about Texas knows they produce a lot of cattle, a lot of beef. We're about to lose a lot of our food supply, or a reduction of, for the following year. And so for this fall, going into next year, we're going to start seeing shelves get a lot emptier, and the price of what is there is probably going to double, if not triple. So these are things you need to think about. Get your family ready. Please take the time. Make sure you're growing your own food. And if you live out in the country, or you've got a place where you can, maybe have some chickens, or grow some of your own, cultivate some of your own animals for food, for eggs, for protein sources and things like that, please do that. Take those things, take the action. Don't sit around and think that someone's coming to save you, because no one is. You have to start doing those things now. Maybe you can start a community garden, talk to your neighbors, kind of get a feel for where they're at, because a lot of people, some people see what's going on, but they just don't know who to talk to possibly have as barter partners. I see a big system coming up in the future where a lot of people are going to start bartering. Teach people how to do things. Hey, if you grab that vegetable, hey, time out. Hey, before you eat it, hey, can you pull the seeds from it? Things like that. These are little things that a lot of people don't think about. So anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. Keep your head on a swivel, and I'll be hitting you guys up later, and we'll talk about that PSA that was in the New York government warning people in New York on the next video, and I'm going to give a little analysis on that, and there's kind of a couple of things that I want to talk about with that. So anyways, you guys have a good one, and sign up for the newsletter. Hit my website up, sign up for the newsletter, and definitely I'm on a lot of other platforms. If you sign up for the newsletter, I'll give you the inside information on that. Anyways, you guys take care.